Now there is a very interesting fight that potentially could happen in the fall of 2015. That fight being Keith one-time Thurman against Shawn Porter. If you take me back a year and a half ago, I said to you, yeah, Keith Thurman, Shawn Porter, he'll beat Shawn Porter. You know, he'll beat Shawn Porter, no problems. 2015, you asked me that question, and I think Keith Thurman has reached a point in his boxing career so far where he doesn't look like he's progressing. He seems to be doing the same things over and over and over again. You know, if he can't get you out of there in the first couple of rounds, he resorts to going on to the back foot and boxing off the back foot, which is fine. You know, not sitting down on punches enough. You know, instead deciding not to engage and throwing punches when he wants to throw and engage when he wants to engage, and try and avoid getting into a shootout early in fights. Since the shoulder injury, which I mentioned in previous videos, I don't think Thurman has looked as impressive since his comeback. He knocked down Robert Guerrero, yes. He knocked down Bundu, yes. And he got the wins. And then we look at the Collazo fight, and Collazo hit him with a body shot. We all know about that. And yeah, you get hit with body shots in boxing, and that doesn't expose a boxer. But Keith Thurman hasn't looked that impressive since his come up with his shoulder injury. You know, what has been happening with Keith Thurman, he's been doing a lot of talking, a lot of talking. You know, he's calling everybody out. He doesn't mind. He's outgoing. You want to be careful what he's saying, because as much as I am a massive Thurman fan, in this particular era, not in any era previously, in this particular era, when your old goes, and fans are so fickle in boxing, when your old goes, so does some of your fan base, and you have to rebuild that fan base. And once your old goes, you also that sense of being immortal or unbeaten or unbeatable goes. You're no longer the bad man of the division in that sense. You now have to rebuild your career, and it's how Thurman gets beat. My concern with this fight with Porter is, here's a guy who, there's no doubt, is got a very high work rate. He hits hard enough, and he's busy. See, Thurman looks good, looks explosive coming forward, lots of angles the way he throws his shots. My concerns are when he wings his wide punches very wide, that a guy who's straight will always get there quicker than him going wide with big shots. But he's not a wild puncher. Let's get this straight. Thurman can box. He can box. I wouldn't say he's got a great left jab. He's got an okay jab. You know, I think he used it more as a rangefinder to try and set his big shots up, rather than actually, you know, I don't see Thurman pushing guys back with a left jab. And my concern is, it's not Thurman going forward which I'm concerned about. It's Thurman going backwards against Shawn Porter. And it's that when Thurman's on the ropes, he doesn't seem to know how to fight well off the ropes. He seems to get disorganized when his back's against the ropes, and you've got his chest, when you've got his head in his chest, doesn't quite know what to do. Saw moments of that against Guerrero, and again against Collazo. He didn't look that great when he was back. His back was against the ropes, and he was having to, and you know, the range was, when he was up close, he didn't quite know how to fight. Mid to long range, Thurman is good, where he's able to throw them big booming hooks. He's great with that. But when you get Thurman close against the ropes and you smother, he tends to smother his work, and he becomes ineffective on the ropes. Some fighters love fighting on the inside if they're on the inside dictating the pace, but if they're backed up against the ropes and the pressure's on them, I'm very uncomfortable. More and more I watch Keith Thurman, more and more I get more uncomfortable watching him fight when his back's against the ropes. And the scenario of him fighting Porter, where Porter's a very good, for me, effective inside fighter, this could spell trouble for Thurman. He would have to take the centre of the ring and stay in the centre of the ring for the 12 rounds. But from all the previous Thurman fights, if he doesn't get Porter out in the first couple of rounds, which I don't think he will, I think you'll have at some point Porter pushing Thurman against the ropes, and then the explosion will happen. That's my concern with Keith Thurman against the ropes, and I'm not so much on a big rush for him to go and fight Porter at all. In fact, at this point in time, I go back to what George Shawn III said about Thurman's career being rushed. I think there's no reason why Thurman couldn't take his time a little bit more in his career and work on a few more things before he fights the big fights, because as I said before in a previous video, they're going to get harder and harder and harder. You know, and he's calling that Mayweather, he's called that Porter, he's called that Khan, he's called that Brock, and that's great. That's great. But is his technique up to par to fight those guys? Yes, he's a puncher, but has his punch found its level? You know, is he just I don't know. Is he as big a puncher as people put him out to be? When was the last time he scored a knockout? I think it was Diaz, actually. But Diaz retired in his stool. And again, Collatzer's retired in his stool. You know, Collazer had the best round of the fight and is able to hurt Thurman. And the other thing is, Thurman was hurt with a body shot, and it was a kidney shot even. Is he tight at the weight? Is he tight at welterweight? That's another question to ask as well. But I don't see how effective he can be if you're busy basically dancing around the ring and throwing punches off the back foot. That means that's lessening the amount of power on your shots. So I don't know if this is a training thing, but from what I'm seeing, and this is no disrespect to Dan Birmingham, it looks like Thurman has hit his curve in terms of development as a fighter, and he needs help now. I think he needs help now before that gets exposed later on in fights. That's no disrespect to Dan Birmingham now, but I just think that maybe Thurman needs a change. That's my thoughts, especially if you're going forward to fight guys like Porter. People say, well, the only thing about Porter is, and his father seems to be working on it, is where Porter seems to sometimes stand in front of him and not do anything. At the times when Porter puts his hands up like this and does very little, that's when Thurman's got to be getting on Porter and not allow Porter to take the fight, which means Thurman's got to take the centre ring. If he doesn't take centre ring and allows Porter to back him up, he'll either get stopped or Porter outwork him. And then you have a situation where the guy that got beat by Kell Brook now ends up beating Keith Thurman. So no longer do I pick Thurman to be a favourite against Porter based on what I'm seeing of him at the moment. I mean, you know, it seems that his technique is, you know, you look at him more, and instead of seeing more of Thurman, you're seeing the same thing, which means to me that there's an area of development needs to happen. So I'm not convinced Thurman fights well off the back foot when pressurized. It's alright fighting off the back foot when you're not pressurized, you know. And it's like, well, okay, once I start backing up and closing you down, closing the range down, you don't see Keith Thurman do a lot of holding either. That's another thing, you know. We hold, sometimes holding, you could break in guys' rhythm. The referee separates you. You can then take the centre of the ring again. That's another thing I don't see much in the Thurman game. Yes, he has blistering, fast hands and power punching, but like I said, the shoulder injury and dancing around the ring. Some people say running around the ring, but dancing around the ring and not setting your feet and low and landing your shots, that takes sting off your power as well. And I don't know, does Thurman have the same confidence in his punch power? He's doing a lot of talking. He's doing more talking now than ever. So I guess that's his marketing strategy for people to, you know, pay attention to him. So, you know, we're going to see where this Thurman story goes next. But the rumor is him and Porter to fight in, you know, in the fall, October time. That'd be, I think, it's a great fight. I'll side with Porter for this one. What do you guys think? I'm out.